Welcome and anchor down from the Vanderbilt campus. Jimmy and I are back here with episode 10 of our Vandy Sports Podcast, JT and Zeke on West End. Today we're going to preview the Missouri game, break them down a little bit, talk about our own team, and make some game picks.
All right, so let's talk about Missouri. They're a pretty similar team to Vandy, 4-3, 1-3 in the SEC, and their fans are very underwhelmed with how they've performed this season. Best way to describe them is very, very, very weak offense, but top defense, similar to us, but maybe even more extreme. To give you some stats, their offense this year ranks 127th out of 128 in yards per game and 125th out of 128 in points per game. Now, Vandy, with our terrible red zone offense, scores over 3 more points per game than Mizzou.
Yeah, it just makes you realize how weak Missouri's offense is. A lot of that weakness comes from their offensive line. Our defensive line might be able to expose that in certain situations. They have a hard time running the ball, hard time throwing a ball, really a hard time doing everything, and that caused them to make a quarterback change. Matty Mock, very familiar name among SEC fans, was so bad that they decided to pull him and put in Drew Lock.
Yeah, and Drew Lock hasn't looked too much better. The one player on offense to look out for is wide receiver Nate Brown. The name may sound familiar. Derek Mason tried to flip him 2 seasons ago, very late in the recruiting process when Mason was new. Sadly, we were unsuccessful in that. He has 251 yards and 4 touchdowns on the season. He's really their only big target at all on offense. So not too much to worry about. They only got 164 yards against Georgia last week.
Yeah, think about South Carolina game. The goal is to stop Pharaoh Cooper. This guy isn't even as good as him. If we could shut him down, that would be great. You look at the defensive side of the ball, Missouri has a great defense. We're comfortable with saying that. They are great. They're 8th in the nation in yards allowed per game. To give you an idea, we're 31st in the nation in yards allowed per game, and they allow about 50 fewer yards a game than us.
And in terms of points, they only let up 12.9 per game. That's 6th in the entire nation. In terms of points for Vandy, we're 23rd, allowing 18.5. Just makes you think this is going to be a really, really low-scoring game. I don't know if we're going to be able to put points up against these guys.
Yeah, the over-under set at 34, the lowest for any Division I college football game yet this year. We both would take the under. We feel like it should be somewhere in the high 20s. This could be a low-scoring, couple of field goals and a touchdown could win it on Saturday.
Yeah, definitely. This defense for Mizzou, they held Georgia to under 4 yards per carry last game. To give you some context, when we played Georgia, we allowed 6.4 yards per carry. That's a pretty big difference. Also, they have one stud on defense that's worth noting.
Kentrell Brothers.
Yep. 6 foot, 238 pounds. He's a senior, projected to go in the top 3 rounds of the NFL draft. Easily could be a first rounder. He leads the SEC in tackles with 91. That's 23 more than second, who is Sky Moore. And also, if Zach Cunningham were to play on the pace that he played in the last 3 games, I think he's gotten like 15 tackles one game, 11 in another, and 13 in another. He still wouldn't be on pace to tie Kentrell Brothers. That's how many tackles this guy gets per game.
Yeah, double digits every single game, essentially. They also have 8 picks on the season, which is a lot, 29th in the country, 20 sacks on the season, which puts them at 16th in the country. This is a defense that can make plays. I'm very nervous going into the game given our tendency to throw interceptions. Going against them just doesn't look like a great matchup for our offense, really for any offense going into it.
I think we're going to have to run the ball a lot. I'm too afraid of passing it against this defense. The pass rush is strong, as you mentioned, and they also pick off a lot of passes.
Yeah, the turnover battle is always huge. It becomes even bigger in a game where there's 2 offenses going against 2 really tough defenses, and both offenses can't really move the ball too well. So if you have a giveaway on your side of the field, it could lose the game for you right there.
Yep, and 2 more players to note on the Mizzou defense are their 2 defensive ends, Walter Brady, who's a redshirt freshman, and Charles Harris, who's a sophomore. They have respectively 6 and 5 sacks on the season, both 6'3", 255, intimidating guys that could make McCrary or whoever plays quarterback's job pretty difficult this Saturday.
Yeah. And going back to what Jimmy said about running the ball, that's a must. Ralph Webb's yards per carry were very, very low at the beginning of the season. He only averaged 3.4 yards a carry in September, which is up to 5.2 yards a carry in October. It's a game. You just got to manage the game. Talk about the quarterback situation. You just want a guy who's known as a game manager. If we had that, that would be the guy I'd want to throw out there this week.
Yeah, the key to this game is not allowing the opposing defense to score against us. Their offense is not going to put up numbers. I could easily see us holding them to below 14. And realistically, if we don't turn the ball over and they have tough field position, they may not be able to move the ball at all. The key, like Zach said, is all about being a game manager, not turning the ball over, putting our putting our defense in good situations in terms of field position.
Yeah, if you're trying to turn on somebody to football who hasn't really seen it before, hasn't really watched it, you're saying, oh, football's a great, exciting game, everybody loves it. This is probably the last game that you want to take them to. Missouri lost to Georgia 9-6 last week. And there's really not much reason to believe that this will be a higher scoring game than that. It might be a very boring one on Saturday, but low scoring games are generally close, so it could be one where we can really win.
Yeah, definitely. It's homecoming at Vandy, so I got excited for that. It's a home game. Obviously, it's homecoming. But, I mean, anything could happen if it's low scoring. All you might need is 10 points to win the game. I mean, they only put up 6 against Georgia, and our defense is probably better than Georgia's.
Yeah, a return touchdown or a defensive touchdown definitely could decide this game. And I know Vandy62 on Twitter, shout out to him, wants us to talk more about the quarterback situation. Mason, in his press conference, I think in 30 seconds, he said it 11 times, we're exploring every option. Today, that was his go-to line. And what I think he means by that is that they are exploring every option. He's definitely not satisfied with McCrary, as he shouldn't be. He's looking at McCrary. He's giving Freebeck another shot. I think Kyle Shermer on the depth chart for the first time this week is definitely an option for the first time all season in the eyes of the coaches. And who knows, Ronald Monroe, the guy that we would like to see out there, some Wildcat, might also get a shot.
Yeah, I hope that's the case. And my take on what Mason has said is that we're highly considering Shermer. I hope that's the case. At least I really hope that it's not Freebeck that we're considering starting. It'll be interesting to see who plays. My guess is McCrary starts, but I don't know. We're going to shake it up somehow, it seems like.
Yeah, I'd have to think McCrary would start. I think Shermer, I would not be surprised if he came into the game. This is the first game I can say that for. I'd also kind of be surprised if we didn't see some Wildcat run by Sims. He's by far our most explosive player in recent weeks on offense. Based on what the coaches are saying, they're just looking for ways to move the ball. They don't want turnovers. The Wildcat pretty much guards against turnovers, although it might be tough against Missouri's defense. I'd love to see some Wildcat from Sims this week.
I'd like to see that too, regardless of whether we do the Wildcat. I think Sims will get a lot more production this week, similar to last week. It seems that we're trying to utilize him a lot more than we did at the beginning of the season, and last week that worked extremely well, so expect us to continue that whether he plays quarterback or not in the Wildcat.
Definitely. So this is a game where I think you can pick Vandy. Some fans are probably saying, oh, we don't have a shot, Missouri's much better than South Carolina, but as I said before, low-scoring game, you really don't know what's going to happen. And I think with that, are you okay getting into the battle round predictions, or is there anything else you want to say?
Just one more thing to note. They did score 24 points against South Carolina, so there have been games in which they've scored a lot. Also, 27 against Arkansas State. Not saying those are big accomplishments, but it is a possibility that they score a little more than we've been making it out to, like how bad we were making their offense out to be.
Yep.
All right, yeah, so I think it's time to go on to the battle rounds. So far, I am 8-10, is that correct, or 8-12? 8-10.
8-10, I think. We're at 18 games.
Yeah, and you're 12-6. I'm trying to even the gap slowly but steadily. I'm getting towards 500.
Yeah, real rough start, but definitely catching up. This week we have 4 games all out of the SEC. I think the first one we're going to get out of the way. I think it's a very easy pick. So do all of our fans. Tennessee at Alabama.
Let's take Alabama in that one.
Yeah, that's an easy one. Hoping to pad our stats a little bit, putting that one on the docket. And then Texas A&M at Ole Miss.
After what I saw last week from Ole Miss, it's hard to pick them. I'm going to take Texas A&M bounce back week.
I agree. I have to take Texas A&M. I'm still pretty high on them, even though they lost to Alabama. Next game, Kentucky at Mississippi State.
Kentucky's a really underrated team, but at the same time, this one's in Starkville, so I'm going to take Mississippi State.
2 words, Dak Prescott, Mississippi State. The last game, the big game of the week, where ESPN College Game Day should be this week. In Nashville, Missouri, Vanderbilt, Battle of the Black and Gold. Let's see, let's hear a game prediction, which will count for the battle, and a score prediction.
All right. I really want to pick Vandy, but after last week, it's very difficult to. I'm going to say that Vandy struggles the first half. McCreary ends up throwing a couple picks. Hopefully we sub him out and find a little bit of rhythm in the second half to score 10 points. But it's hard to see us limiting Mizzou to under 10 points if McCreary does throw those 2 picks in the first half. So I'm going to take Mizzou 14-10.
Ooh.
I hate to say it.
All right. I believe that this team still has enough time to turn it around, and this is the week that it happens, but it almost doesn't happen. I think it's 9-6 Mizzou late in the game. Ralph Webb breaks loose, 80-yard touchdown run. Vandy wins 13-9.
That would be amazing. I'm hoping you're right. Our scores are right in the same ballpark. We both have 22 and 24 total points, both taking the under. It's going to be a low-scoring game unless it's a freak. I don't know, something freakishly weird happens.
Yeah, a lot of defensive scores, a couple of returns. I think it would take.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think we're on the same page. I'm really hoping Vandy wins. I'm going to take Mizzou, but I'm hoping for the best.
Okay, well, we'll check back on those picks next week. Hopefully Mason gets his first SEC win. Should be a low-scoring one. Should be tight. Anchor down.
Yeah, thank you, and anchor down.